Hi and welcome to Overland NZ. I'm Daniel. For our first YouTube video, I thought we'd kind of go over the truck and just kind of explain everything that I've done to build it up to make it an awesome touring vehicle. So just a little background info on the truck before we get going. It is a 1996 Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, a 1KZ 3-litre turbo diesel engine. It's done, what are we now? Just over 300,000 Ks. Everything seems to be ticking along pretty well. It's automatic, full-time, 4-wheel drive, and basically it's just really nice to drive. So starting with the tyres, we're running Goodyear Wrangler duratrax on our Prado. It's got 265/75 R16 on 16x8 steel rims with a, if I remember correctly, -22 offset. They're a good compromise between an AT tyre and a mud terrain tyre. They're not too noisy on the road and they're pretty good off-road. Obviously they're not quite as good as a real mud tyre, but for what we do, which is mostly big highway miles and a lot of beach driving, they seem to do the trick pretty well. Coming alongside now, you can see that we're running a snorkel. It is a genuine Safari Prado snorkel. I didn't fit this, this came already on the truck. I personally don't think I'd bother spending the money on a genuine Safari snorkel. I had a cheap trade me one on my previous vehicle and it gave us no problems whatsoever. Moving along, down in here we're running a 40mm spring lift. That's on all 4 corners of the vehicle, and it just helps lift us up that little bit more and let us run some slightly bigger tyres. Coming around the back of the vehicle here, see that we've got a mud terrain spare tyre currently. That is on my to-do list to change at some point to match up with the rest of the other wheels so I can rotate them easily. We're currently running a shackle where the tow ball used to be. Now I know this isn't the best way to recover vehicles, but we're yet to actually get a proper tow hook put on. Thankfully, I've never actually needed it properly. So on drives of the vehicle, there's nothing actually custom. I've managed to put everything like snorkel and UHF aerial and stuff onto the passenger's side. Coming into the cab, we have the TZ model of Prado, which comes with the beautiful looking wood grain, which is kind of unfortunate. As you can see, it's a fairly normal Toyota interior, there's nothing too special about it. Let me just climb in. Sitting in here, we've got 2 gauges and an Oricom UHF radio, which you can see the base unit sitting down there. I was a little bit concerned about installing the base unit so low, but it seems to work pretty well and we can hear what's going on quite easily. Sitting up top of the multi-information display here, I'm running both a EGT and water temperature gauge, as the engine in these trucks, while being super reliable, do have a tendency to crack heads when you're running sort of long times up hills. You can see if I turn the truck on, excuse the flashing, the cell phone doesn't capture this very well. You can see currently with the engine off, exhaust sitting at 158 and the water sitting at 88. It is incredible how quickly the exhaust temperatures go up when you put your foot down. And with one of these engines, I try to keep them below 700, preferably 600, but there are times when you do need to put your foot down. Coming around the back again, I'm going to go inside. I get a lot of questions about how we sleep in the Prado. Now, it's not currently set up, but basically we have the 8-seater Prado, and this seat here, and these seats here all fold flat and basically fill up the whole space in the boot here and become a double bed, which is surprisingly comfortable. So what do we have in the back of the truck? This is always interesting and I like seeing what other people have in theirs, so please share in the comments like what you keep in the back. Starting over here, we have a Anderson plug. So that comes straight from the battery with an 80 amp fuse, and basically it allows us to run electrical items from the back of the truck, like the air compressor. We've got a cheap little inverter here. Now I know that modified sine is not necessarily the best to use, but we don't use it too often and it's basically for emergencies. Coming along here, I've got a whole bunch of spare parts, which I need to get a toolbox for, some headlights. Spade. The number of people that we've had to dig out is amazing. I don't know why people drive on the beach without a spade. standard tool pack that comes with the truck. Spare wires. You never know when you're going to need a spare high gauge, thick gauge wire. Gumboots. Never ever forget your gumboots. The one big recovery I've had to do involved running around in a creek, and I didn't have my gumboots that day, of course. Over here we have a NZ off-roader spare wheel bag. Basically that's used for rubbish when we're out camping. Just saves us putting in the vehicle and getting everything grubby and stinky, basically. I've got jumper leads in there. A tripod, so I'm very into photography, and having a tripod is always helpful. Back here we've got a couple of snatch strap, toe strap, what else is in there? Some shackles and various other pieces for taking people out of places where they don't want to be. We've got a tire deflator, so this is probably one of the most useful things I've bought. It's a Savage Performance one. It was like 50 bucks, and compared to the one that I purchased previously, which is now my backup tire deflator, this thing works way better and it actually removes the valve stem and doesn't take forever. And to the left of that we have another tripod and an air compressor. So that kind of covers the back of the truck. One thing I really want to do from the back of the truck here is chuck a fold down table from this back door so that we can cook and stuff like that without having to set up a little camping table all the time. I haven't got around to it mostly because when the seats are folded down inside for the bed, there's very little room up against this door here, and you can see we kind of got some pegs for hanging up the washing, first aid kit, past steering fluid because I have a little bit of a leak, and cooking utensils. These things here get in the way when it's sleep time, so it's something I need to figure out at some point or come up with a better storage solution. One thing I don't see very often on overlanding trucks, and I kind of get why because lots of people do run rooftop tents, but roof boxes. We borrowed one for our trip down south on the first sort of big overlanding expedition style thing that we did, and it was incredibly useful. So the first thing I bought was one of these for the Prado. I jumped on Trade Me, found a second-hand one for, I think I paid about 250 bucks for it. It's enormous. It wouldn't work on a smaller vehicle than this, to be honest. It takes up pretty much the length of the roof rack, but it's an incredibly useful thing to have. Like, you can put all our sort of light, camping stuff up there, camp chairs, the kitchen stove, all that sort of stuff. And I don't really understand why people don't run them, or the sort of snobbery around them. Under the hood, I've kept things very, very simple. Running a big 4-core copper brass radiator. Basically, as I was removing the top hose to install the temperature gauge, which I'll get to in a second, I cracked the old plastic one and decided it was time to do something a little bit better. Down here, we can't really see it too clearly. I'll try and point to it. There's the EGT probe, so that comes straight out of the exhaust manifold and runs up behind the intercooler, and into the cabin up to the gauges. Up here in the top hose is the coolant sensor probe and slice, whatever those things are called. I put it into the top hose basically because that is the hottest part of the engine, and so keeping it, keeping an eye on those temperatures is real important in these. Runs into this guy here, which runs around the engine bay and into the cab again behind the intercooler. So yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of the Overland NZ truck number 1. Over winter, I have quite a few little projects planned, mostly around lighting and sort of improving the comfort when we're out and about for, weeks on end. There's also a couple of little things I want to get sorted out. I want some new shocks and springs, pretty much all round. It's currently running a mismatched shocks, and I don't know what brand left kit. The back has started to sag slightly, so when loaded up with like extra water and fuel and things like that, it doesn't really work. I will be doing a complete camping setup as well, so sort of going through what we carry, why, and my sort of motto of carrying as little as possible, which doesn't always happen. But yeah, just to kind of show you guys what we typically bring on a excursion, whether it be a weekend or a couple of weeks away in far north or far south of New Zealand. So yeah, stay tuned. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Daniel, as I said, and I'll catch you next time on Overland NZ.